Hey, everybody. This is recording in progress here. This is Harvey Sluggo Wasserman back with the 220 something Green Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Zoom call. Nobody seems to know exactly what number this is, but I can tell you for sure it's May 19th, 2025. Next week will be Memorial Day, so we will be off. But today we're on in more ways than one. We got a poem that's two poems, I guess, from Mimi German to start with. Is that right, Mimi? And it is. Okay. And then I want to talk about my favorite, one of my favorite rock and rollers, Bruce, who stuck it to Donald Trump in a nonpartisan way. I want to tell my own little Bruce story. I'm going to talk a bit about a terrible Supreme Court decision that's gone against the Venezuelan people. Then we're going to jump in with our favorite mayor of Waldport, Oregon, Mayor HEIDE LAMBERT. And then we're going to also be joined by Karl Grossman, who's going to talk about all the Democrat pro-nuke governors, all Democrats, including his governor in New York. And just now the one in Massachusetts, it's ridiculous. And then we've got Paul Newman, who has solar panels on his rooftop in Santa Monica, who's going to talk about getting stabbed in the back by Gavin Newsom, haven't we all? I guess you're not anybody if you haven't been stabbed in the back by Gavin Newsom. I also want to talk about the second half hour of the first hour. We're going to talk about energy. I want to talk about Ann Arbor, my alma mater, which is going solar and to mini grids, microgrids is really a great thing. Nuclear stuff in Finland, solar rail lines, which is very cool, and lithium recycling. And then the second hour at 6 o'clock Eastern time, 3 o'clock Pacific, we're going to be joined by the great Greg Palast, we're going to devote that hour to what they're doing to really mess up our ability to vote in this country. If you're a woman who is married and changed your name, you may just not be able to vote. This is kind of a repeal of the 19th Amendment in many ways. So that'll be the second hour. And then at the top of the third hour, our 4 o'clock to 4:20 segment, we're going to talk about how Gavin Newsom has stabbed people in the back on homelessness in California. It's a big deal. We're going to be joined by Donald Whitehead and Susie Shannon, really, really great, legendary, impactful, and important activists on the homeless issue. So, as usual, we got a ton to deal with. Next week we'll be off. We're going to be on Memorial Day, but the week after, of course, we'll be back if we still have the freedom of speech press or whatever. But now we are down to or up to the great opener that we always love from our wonderful Mimi German, who's in Portland, Oregon. He's got two poems for us. Mimi, rock and roll here, please.
I've changed things around, Sluggo. I'm reading one that's more pertinent for
Okay. Well,
Black
we
girl.
like pertinent.
Okay, good. This is
You're kind of pertinent yourself, actually. So go
well,
ahead, please.
Sluggo. All right, from impertinence. No, this is from my book called Where Grass is Banned, and it's called A Thousand Grains of Sand. A thousand grains of sand. America, the dominatrix, empire of a thousand grains of sand, whose masters ink in the high heels of war whores, who circle jerk at the feasts of landlords while spilling slop bucket prayers to the poor. America, how necrotic your soul. Your poets cringe in the wake of your obscenities. Your rotted stench of henchmen, pillagers of lands once verdant and alive, your orchards of poverty grow seeds of death. America, the illiterate, puritanical, and unsavory, you were never ready to leave home.
Cool. Now, that's the America of Donald Trump you're talking about.
Yes, it sure is.
So listen, next time, do the America of Oren Lyons and Jeanette Rankin and all the good folks that we like. Um, you know, uh,
Oh,
I've always been proud to be an American. I still am, but I'm not proud that Donald Trump is an American. And we're not so happy with Joe Biden these days either. I mean, he really did a number on us, not fully disclosing. Well, I guess if you're as far gone as he apparently was, you're not really capable of fully disclosing how far gone you are. But I hope this puts in context how far gone Donald Trump really is. We'll deal with all this. Mimi, thank you, as always, for your fabulous poetry. We really appreciate it. I want to appreciate for the moment another great American poet, Bruce Springsteen. I had the opportunity, I had the privilege, the amazing experience of working with Bruce Springsteen in 1979. We had 5 concerts in Madison Square Garden, 5 nights. And we started with Bonnie Raitt, Jackson Browne, James Taylor, Carly Simon, Crosby, Stills, Nash, and we sold out a Wednesday and a Thursday. And then Bruce signed on. Many people had gotten to Bruce over the year prior to 3 Mile Island to talk to him about nuclear power. He was clearly opposed. And finally, there was a moment in LA. Jackson Browne and Graham Nash did a series of concerts in California, in San Diego, LA, and Oakland. And at the one in LA, I was doing the media, and we spotted Bruce in the audience. And we ran down and grabbed the poor guy and dragged him backstage to talk to him about nukes. And then after 3 Mile Island, he was approached by 40 or 50 different people to join our concerts in Madison Square Garden. And we had sold out Wednesday and Thursday with the lineup I just mentioned. And then Bruce announced that he would do Friday and Saturday. And we sold out Madison Square Garden, I don't know, 24,000 seats both nights in 2 hours. It was mind-boggling. The news barely hit that he was going to play, and he was sold out. And then we did Sunday night with CSN. But because of I was doing the media, I got to stand about 50 feet, stage left or right, facing the stage to the right. I don't know if that's stage left or right. And it was phenomenal. I mean, I just got to watch him. It was his 30th birthday, amazingly enough. And he was just great. I vowed to never again go to a Bruce Springsteen concert because I knew it couldn't be topped. But in 2008, he was out doing, or 12, I remember, he was out doing benefits for Barack Obama. And I wanted to make sure my kids saw him. So I took one or more of my children to see Bruce at Ohio State. But this all comes up because he has made some very pointed comments, and good for him, overseas about the state of American democracy or what's left of it. And he's very articulate. Bruce is a really smart guy, and he really knows what he's talking about. People should read what he said and then read Donald Trump's response. Donald Trump's response was to say that Bruce Springsteen was a no-talent guy. If there was ever a guy on this planet who was a talent guy, it's Bruce Springsteen. So there you go. I can't promise him for a further a grief call, but I'll do my best. So today now we are with the wonderful mayor of Waldport, Oregon. You are a regular. We're following your incredible story. You were purged. You were arrested. Then you were de-arrested and de-purged, Mayor HEIDE Lambert. Where do things stand now with your mayoralty and the government of Waldport, Oregon?
Wow.
We have 70 people with us who are hanging on your every word, not to mention the ones on YouTube and beyond. So go ahead, tell us the latest.
Well, so I'm so glad that you asked me to come back every week. When you asked me to come back, I was like, there's not going to be much to report. Justice goes slow. But not in this case. This case
Well,
has been a farce.
justice may go slow, but injustice goes very quickly. So,
Yeah, yeah, I guess that's what's going on. So, last week, I think I came and said, that the council didn't want this. Not only did they oust me illegally, but they also have canceled the last 3 meetings. So we've gone 3 meetings now without any public comment. And the whole reason they removed me was because they said that I was the only one who had complaints. They like to make I'm the problem, not the people have a problem, and that's why they voted me in. So my attorney wrote this really great letter that said, hey, you're in contempt of the court if you don't let her run the meetings and have a meeting. And so they did agree to have a meeting. It's this Thursday at 4 p.m. If anyone wants to come to Waldport, you're more than welcome.
Well, I think we'll rent a 747 and fly there from LaGuardia. So, just be prepared.
Well, I heard something like the Saudi Arabia wanted to give a plane away, so maybe you can get that from
Yes,
them.
right. That's right.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, so
so let me ask you, there are 6 members of the city council, right?
yeah.
Are all of them against you?
Yeah, yeah. They really wanted their best friend to be elected as mayor, and then when they weren't elected, they're bitter and they're mad about me. But then they really will not recognize that the court has put me back in. They're not recognizing that.
Now, which court is this? What court put you back in?
The Lincoln County
A
Court,
county court.
a county
Have they
court.
appealed it to a state court?
Well, so it's interesting you ask that because I just found out this case is so how do I say this? The attorney who's defending me defended and won a case in January for a counselor named Counselor Ellis versus the city of Corvallis. That was a very contentious case. It also went up to the state Supreme Court. The person who defended the city in that case has come forward and has told the city of Waldport that they will defend the city of Waldport.
But you're the mayor. You don't have to hire him or her.
I wasn't even asked to vote if I wanted. I don't even know how it was decided. There hasn't even been a meeting to decide or to vote, but I have been told, again, told is how they think the mayor works in our town, that Markowitz is defending the city. And the thing about this is they're very expensive firm. And I don't know if you know this, but cities actually have insurance for when they're sued, and that insurance pays for their attorneys. And
But
Corvallis,
have you sued the city of Waldport?
this is considered a lawsuit, even though it's not about money. It is considered litigation. I have entered litigation just to be returned to my seat.
So
So it's an injunction.
you the mayor are suing your own town, and the town, without so far voting, has hired a lawyer to oppose you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
And
exciting.
what's wild about it, though, what's really wild about it was that this happened just 6 months ago in a town less than 60 miles away from me, that Corvallis did the same thing to a city councilor. Same old what is it, charter rule that's super outdated. It's like 70-year-old charter rule. And this whole rule was to keep cronies out. Not carnies, cronies.
Well, carnies too. I mean, probably
I
too
mean,
small for a
government.
circus, but well, this is a circus. So the without having a meeting, the city council, on behalf of the city, has hired an attorney to sue the mayor.
Yeah, and a very, very expensive one. A very expensive one. Not one that their insurance would pay for.
Well, can you veto the hiring of this mayor of this law firm?
Well, you would think that I could just ask to see the contract, but they won't even show me the contract. So we've done a public information request for that contract and for who's paying. I'm asking who's paying this. Because
Tell
I
them to
think,
do a bake sale.
well, it could be, I guess, that independent people can pay for attorneys for cities. So that's a whole other
Yeah,
rabbit hole.
I bet they're not going to pay for it personally. They're gonna try and stick the city. So, is there any way that you can arrange a special election to recall the city councilors?
So there is a group of people in town who are working on that. There is a group of people who are doing the recall. I personally have been focusing on just trying to work with this group. Again, they told me that they're having this meeting Thursday. I have never received an agenda. I haven't been asked to add to the agenda. I haven't even gotten a packet about the budget. I mean, they're pretending like I don't exist.
Are
That's
they
their
have they
MO.
threatened to arrest you if you turn up at this meeting of your own
Well,
city
they
council?
They tried the last meeting, remember? And the
Yes, they
police said
did.
they
They
wouldn't
did arrest you.
come. Yeah, they said they're not, that I have the judge order that gives me my seat. Like I can stay in my seat. They just don't want to recognize it.
I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up, but this is America 2025. So, and I guess anything goes, right? Well, we just saw the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, arrested when he wasn't protesting.
Right.
And
He
he
was
was not
touring,
on
right?
what's
I was told he was touring a prison that did not have
no,
an
he had
occupancy
finished the
permit.
tour. The mayor of Newark, New Jersey, and I'm about 20 miles from Newark, New Jersey right now. And what you're looking at behind me, by the way, is the an outdoor classroom at where I taught in Columbus, Ohio. So we're all over the map here. But the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, with three U.S. congresspeople, three members of the United States Congress, came to inspect a facility. And the mayor went in. I don't remember if the Congress people went in, and then they asked him to leave, and he left. And he was outside on public property and was arrested, even though he was not protesting. He made it clear
Yeah.
he was not protesting. They arrested him, and then they more or less apologized. And but you were arrested, right? And then did they cuff you? Did they put handcuffs on you?
No, they didn't need to handcuff me because I was going with them willingly.
Yeah, but they still love to handcuff people.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And they did have zip ties, but luckily they didn't get them out.
Oh, all
Again,
right.
Sluggo,
The one time that I was ever zip tied, I was arrested with Greenpeace in 1991 at the Nevada test site. And we were about 50, 60 miles from the nearest county jail. And so the federal marshals came in and they zip tied all of us and they put us on a school bus. There were like maybe 50 of us on the school bus. And thankfully, one Greenpeace guy had nail clippers. And by the time we got to the jail, we were all free. We
Sluggo,
just passed the nail clippers around and
Sluggo,
cut
I
all
want
the
to,
zip
I
ties.
want to, I want to add to what's going on with Heidi's situation. Heidi, can I add?
yeah, please, Mimi, please.
So we have definitively found out that city council is run by Heidi, by the mayor. The agenda is made up by the mayor. It is created by the mayor. And what the 6 city councilors are doing is, first of all, not including her in any emails. That's the first. So she finds out about things like through the grapevine, and also is not allowed, well, that's going to change this week, but has not been allowed to create any agenda items or run the meeting. So their display of blowing off the ruling by the court that not only is she the mayor, but they have to allow her to be the mayor. They're still blowing that off. Like they just don't care. So this week will be really interesting because Heidi is going to create at least an additional agenda and put that out and let them know in the amount of time that's necessary before Thursday's meeting. And we'll see what happens. If they don't allow Heidi to run the meeting and create the agenda, they are definitely in violation of what's basically a court order.
So you
Yeah.
can have them arrested. I think you
Yeah.
should show up at the next meeting with a bunch of hand ties, ready to. We have 82 people now with us, and the question then becomes: how can you? I assume you've got a substantial percentage, if not a majority of the town on your side. Is that right?
Yeah. I think that what's
I mean, you got
complicated is that
elected mayor, right?
yeah, I did. I got elected, but the thing is that we're talking about a really small town in rural Oregon. So we got a lot of old families who've known each other forever. So there's like this really twisted loyalty, not to the truth, but just to each other. And that's kind of where there's like this like they call
Well,
themselves the pro city group. So they're not protesters, they're pro city.
well,
Um,
you,
but they
well,
really
you
should
were
be
elected by
pro
more than
city
60.
councilors group, really is what it is. It's not
So
about
there
the
must be, since you've been researching the town bylaws, obviously, there must be a provision in there for a special election.
So there
You must
is
be able to
there
call a special election and get these clowns, thrown off the city council.
yeah, I as a one individual, I can't do that, but as a collective, the community definitely can do that. I believe we
Well, then
need
go for it.
200 signatures. Yeah, no, they're on it. So again, the irony of this is you cannot recall people within the first 6 months that they're elected in Oregon.
Well, that's all right. You got time. You
Oh,
know,
it's like 2 months. We have till July, I think,
well,
6th.
they'll need that time anyway. So, All right, well, listen, Waldport is going to become the capital of American democracy here. I mean, you and Newark, two, could there possibly be two more dissimilar towns in America than Waldport, Oregon, and Newark, New Jersey?
Yeah.
But listen, this is where we're at here, and you seem to me like you're up for the challenge. We got hands up, Steve Caruso and then Mike Hersh. Go ahead, please, Steve.
Yeah, isn't there a rule where meetings are not to be held in secret, that when anybody meets it, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a rule that they're breaking when they're doing emails excluding you and so forth. So if you're in charge of the meeting, then they're acting outside of the law, right? So
Oh yeah. They're
and fascism is no respecter of person. Remember that, right?
Well,
yeah,
it's
no, it's so
that's the
true.
definition of fascism, right? Um, um, Mike Hersh, Steve, yeah, more, Mike,
No, I'm done.
Mike Hersh, and I
Yeah,
want to ask you. Go ahead.
thanks, Sluggo. Yeah, Mimi and I were looking through the city website, and they actually have the Chamber of Commerce kind of linked into the entire city website on the .gov website, which I don't think is permissible. It's like they're running the city as a subsidiary of the Chamber of Commerce,
Oh
Or
which
vice
geez.
is
versa.
yeah, that they're basically breaking so many different rules. It's like a cascade of lawlessness, and then the fact that they call on the sheriff to arrest the democratically elected mayor is just kind of the cherry on
Well,
top of their fascism Sunday that they've got going on.
here's the way you can form an alliance with the Chamber of Commerce. You should get a mini documentary made about this, and then bill Waldport as the tourist capital of American democracy, and really put Waldport on the map so that people will come there, and you'll have tour buses, and you can dress up as Abigail Adams, and just like run with it. I mean, this would be a great tourism opportunity, but really
Well,
put Waldport on the map. What do you
Well,
think?
Sluggo, I think you have a little bit of optimistic view of the Chamber of Commerce. I don't think that they're so much about commerce as they are about control. And what they have is they've got a bunch of handpicked cronies, a little in crowd that have been running the the city or the town to their liking. And I did a little more research this morning, only to find that they ran off a previous mayor who was one of their buddies, who I guess
Yeah.
wasn't buddy enough with them. So this is a group of, like, if you think about the like the mean guys or the mean girls in high school or middle school, that's what they're acting like. Like, you can't sit
Well,
with us and you don't have cool shoes or whatever. This is the most naive, juvenile, small-minded, snarky little clique that's considers the town their own little playground, and they're kicking
well,
everybody out of it. And thank you so much, Mayor HEIDE, for standing up to this.
well, here's one.
I know that this wasn't a fight that you were looking for it by any means, and yet here you are sticking it out. So thank you. We've got your back. We're not going to step back from this. We're going to support you. And Sluggo, your point about recall elections and special elections, yeah, I did the research on the Oregon rules, and of course, Mayor HEIDE, you're right that there's 6 months where people get a chance to serve before they can get kicked out. But that 6 months is close to over. And I do know that there are a lot of people who are outraged and are going to petition to get these clowns recalled. And then we can elect some public-minded people who just want to work for the town, not whatever these clowns are doing. So
Well,
Yeah.
good luck to that.
I will
Thank
slightly
you.
disagree with you, and I'm going to call on Mimi. The Chamber of Congress, if you can turn this into a moneymaker, and I mean, it would just make Wallport a tourist attraction for grassroots democracy. The chamber will go for it. I mean, it's always money that, especially in a small town. So and they do like a Paul Bunyan statue of yourself and with holding a ballot. I mean, what the heck? Mimi, go ahead.
So first of all, Harvey, just regarding that, if you could get, Bonnie, right? Or Bruce go and do a,
We'll get Bruce. Bruce will show up.
Go ahead. You got the contact. That's not what I was going to say. I was going to say that I reached out to ProPublica the other day and told them about this. And I said, look, I know that this might seem very small to you, but this is not a small issue. This is about our democracy. And while I know that you're probably all focused on New Jersey, can we have you look this way? And they wrote back and they said, we don't have the bandwidth right now, but we will try to keep an antenna up. So my point is, if everybody on here, how many of us are there? 80?
80 people.
Everybody on here can drop a note to ProPublica saying, hey, we'd really appreciate if you would cover this issue with Mayor Lambert in Waldport, Oregon, because this is about our small town democracy.
Absolutely.
Then that would be really great in helping to bring this out further and smash this crap. So Heidi can go and do her job, democracy wins, and we can move on.
Well,
Yeah, and I think
go ahead, Heidi.
I was just going to add to that and just say that this really, because this can happen to me in my little town, like this can happen in any little town.
Absolutely.
And also to see these attorneys care. But again, like I'm told that it's very rare to have two teams of attorneys fight over the same fight with the same people. Like this is definitely this is constitutional. This is a big deal because this charter of what they're using to out me with is really, it's about outing everybody who they don't like.
Well, there is a New York Times columnist from Oregon, Nicholas, what's his name? Nick, he's very pro.
He also ran for governor and got
got clobbered. But
yeah.
this is something that we should get to him.
This is a good idea, Sluggo. I will do that.
Well, yeah, okay. What's his last name? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Nick, whatever.
Yeah.
But okay, listen, this is great. Heidi, thank you. We do want to get, a cultural exchange going with you in Newark. We will eventually get to the mayor here and 3 Congress people.
Yeah.
And Trump wanted to have them removed from Congress. They weren't protesting either, for God's sakes. So
no, because when you're talking about a house that only has so many votes ahead or so many votes behind, then they start taking people out to control those votes.
Exactly.
And that's essentially what happened to me is I'm asking where certain money's being spent. Sluggo, you're talking about us becoming a tourist town. It's kind of funny, the irony. I have to just share this with you. We that is a goal of the town, right? And so we have this huge park that we've been creating, and the name of the park is called Southworth, because Southworth was a slave, and he freed himself from slavery by playing the violin, and then he was one of the first people to donate land to a school here in Waldport.
Wow.
And so like I'm honored to name our park after Southworth. However, I just got told this weekend that the city manager told a contractor he would pay him $150,000 to do the work and then never paid him. And now the man is like losing his business, his house, his family over this contract with the city. So anyways, as far as me making the town popular, I feel like it's kind of doing it's doing it itself right now.
Well, it's really interesting. John Steiner, you have a hand? John, and then we're going to go to Karl Grossman and start talking about the pro-nuke governor of New York. Who knew?
John's mute is on.
Oh, sorry. Let's see if I can unmute you. There you go, John. John is in Colorado.
Hey, I just want to say 2 things. It's Nick Kristoff.
Kristoff, there you go.
And Heidi, a very good friend of mine, is a state senator from Ashland by the name of Jeff Golden.
Okay.
And if you'll put your email in chat, I will send you his contact information. And feel free to reach out to him at my suggestion.
Oh, I would love that. Thank you so much.
And we can do, since you mentioned Ashland, they have the Shakespeare Festival down there. You should do a play in that park about democracy. There's all these, Mr. Smith goes to Washington, or, Madam Smith goes to Waldport, whatever. But here we are. Okay.
Harvey,
Yes.
you are on a very good, let's just call it brainstorming roll today.
Thank you. That must be all that LSD I took a couple hours ago. And John, it's always great to hear from you there in scenic radical Boulder, Colorado. So, all right, listen, we're going to pursue this. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Again, everybody, we're off next week, but we will be back after the weekend, and we'll have more from Mayor HEIDE, who will soon be running for governor, right, Mayor? Okay. You and Mimi. Okay, so listen, what an amazing thing. What a great story. Who could have made this? Did you have, in your wildest dreams, Mayor HEIDE Lambert, when you ran for mayor, did you think anything like this would happen to you?
No, I really didn't.
You
I thought I
know,
was gonna like kiss babies and be in parades and get
well,
cupcakes and stuff.
you can still do that. I mean, come on.
Well, the city
All
manager
right.
canceled the parade. There's no parade.
All right, thank you very much. This is wonderful. It's just wonderful stuff to hear. And Karl Grossman, you are also with us now. You are a nuke slayer. You helped shut the Shoreham nuclear plant. I have had the rare opportunity to be on your sailboat in Long Island. We just did speaking of celebrities, we just did a luncheon in New York City for Joe Mangano, the great cancer researcher on nuclear, with Alec Baldwin and Christie Brinkley. I got to tell you, they're both wonderful people. Christie Brinkley is as nice, and I didn't get to talk to Alec Baldwin this time, but I did talk to Christie. She's fabulous. She has a new book out, by the way, which I'm going to have to get and review, called Uptown Girl. I forgot that she was married to Billy Joel, and that song, one of the great songs, is about her. But she does have a book out. And Karl, you were there, and you want to tell us now about yet another Democratic governor going pro-nuclear. This is just hard to bear. So go ahead, Karl Grossman, the great.
I'm unmuted, right? Yes, I am.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, and let me just review the story. It was on Counterpunch last week, and I also spoke about at the event, the Radiation and Public Health Project event in the city in Manhattan. Let me just read from it, and I put it also on the chat. Governor Kathy Hochul, this is a quote, is making a major push to not only build new nuclear plants in New York State, but to make New York the center of a nuclear revival in the U.S., declared Mark Dunley. And some of you folks might know Mark. He's the chair of the Green Education and Legal Fund, and he also co-founded both the New York Public Interest Research Group and National PIRG. And what Mark, I interviewed him, said that Hochul buys the argument that nuclear is carbon-free, avoiding looking at the life cycle of nuclear and its carbon footprint, which includes, he noted, significant emissions of carbon in uranium mining, milling, enrichment, fuel fabrication, and other points. The nuclear industry has been lobbying her, Mark said, to go along with it, and she has. Hochul has also become involved in promoting nuclear power nationally. There's something called the Clean Air Task Force. It's based in Queens, New York. It advocates nuclear power, and a National Association of State Energy Officials has just been announced, with Kathy Hochul in the middle of all this. The headline of the release from this task force: New York, talking about Kathy Hochul, leads multi-state consortium to drive nuclear energy development. I also interviewed for this piece Tim Judson. He's the executive director of the Nuclear Information and Resource Service, and he notes that Hochul made a specific priority in her State of the State speech in January, made nuclear power a priority. In the speech, she declared, the economy of the future, microchips, fabrication plants, data center, and she goes on, all needs, and we're developing an advanced nuclear strategy. And then I shove in here, which is really important, when this advanced nuclear power plant claim is thrown at you, while the nuclear industry and nuclear believers in government are calling advanced nuclear power plants, they're not new and improved, as the Union of Concerned Scientists, and this is on the web, you can get their report, found in an extensive report, they're not improved and not better, and in some respects, significantly worse than conventional plants. Then I went on here in the piece that Hochul is a Democrat, but also said Judson, and this is important, the New York Republican Party has been rabidly pro-nuclear. Syracuse Com website has reported Fort Drum, the U.S. Army base outside Watertown, this is upstate New York, could become the first New York site to try advanced nuclear technology. And then I quote from a letter from Claudia Tenney and Elise Stefanik pushing advanced. And then I note here that Stefanik is a Republican frontrunner to challenge Hochul in election for governor in 2006. Gloria Schindel.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, well, the piece goes on and on.
Well, you've been a great chronicler of all this, and you were very significantly involved in shutting the Shoreham reactor on Long Island. But now the Democratic governors who are now supporting nuclear that I know of is Whitmer in Michigan. What's his name in California? Gavin Newsom. Maura Healey in Massachusetts. I mean, what's with these people?
Well, I mean, I went through and it wasn't just Shoreham. It was always Shoreham Nuclear Power Station 1. There was 7 to 11 nuclear power plants proposed for Long Island it went through the 60s, the 70s. It only ended in the 80s. Long Island, there's a 120-mile Long Island east of Manhattan, was to become, in the parlance of the nuclear promoters of the time, a nuclear park is what they called it. As to what's wrong with these people, I think it has to do with money. The money they get, political campaign contributions and so forth by the nuclear industry. They've poured all kind of money into manipulating politicians, and also just straight off ignorance. These people do know, and part of it is the fault of media. I mean, when I fought the 7 to 11, the nuclear park plan on Long Island, the New York Times was pushing nuclear on Long Island. Newsday, the daily newspaper in Long Island, was pushing nuclear. I mean, it was a very, very lonely, from a media point of view, crusade. But finally, it was stopped. I mean, it took 2 decades, but it ended. But here's a revival of a plan under based on the claim that nuclear is needed to deal with climate change, and nuclear is carbon intensive, and
also heat intensive. How do these people claim that you can fight global warming with an atomic reactor that burns at 350 degrees Fahrenheit? How does that work?
Well,
It doesn't make any sense to me.
None of this works. And in the wake of Indian Point, of 3 Mile Island, in the wake of Fukushima, in the wake of Chernobyl, I mean, you would think they would understand that it's going to be a catastrophe every decade, that solar and wind, water, and solar, as Dr. Mark Jacobson of Stanford University in California has stressed, can provide all the energy we need. Beck, his new book is great. No miracles needed. These existing technologies can provide the power we need, but the nuclear push is still on, and it has to do with, in my view, money and vested interests.
Well, it's absolutely insane. And we have MYLA RESON. MYLA, you may have seen it. Steve and Mike, if you don't mind, MYLA, jump in and I'll get you guys. There's a piece in the Los Angeles Times today by Sammy Roth expressing ambivalence about the 3 reactors at Palo Verde, Arizona, which are partly owned by the LADWP. And you know, at least Sammy is on the fence, or on both sides of the fence, basically. But why don't you jump in, MYLA RESON?
Well, I didn't see that, and I'm looking forward to it because, as you know, Harvey, that Palo Verde nuclear power plant in Arizona is the largest nuclear power plant in the United States. It generates high-level radioactive waste at a rate higher than any other plant. It's got the 3 largest reactors, and it evaporates. It's the only nuclear power plant in the United States that isn't situated near a body of water. So it aggregates municipal wastewater from the entire state of Arizona. It treats that water, and it evaporates 27,000 gallons of water every minute of every day to keep those 3 reactors from blowing up when in the desert. It's just outrageous. The city of Los Angeles has actually invested in it. It's a stakeholder. I'd love to have the city of Los Angeles divest from its interest in Palo Verde, and that might be helpful in terms of shutting down the facility. I had actually raised my hand because I wanted to mention that not only do we have these Democratic governors who are pushing and supporting nuclear power, but there are a lot of very prominent people in the Democratic Party, like Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, who otherwise has done tremendous work on getting dark money out of politics. He's been an advocate for nuclear power, along with this newly elected senator from Arizona. I think his name is Ruben Gallego, who proudly on his website promotes nuclear power. Senator Brian Schatz from Hawaii, and numerous Congress people. So unfortunately, this is really a big
It's a
problem.
plague.
It's a
It's
big
a
problem.
plague.
Yeah, right. So anyway, thank you. I'm going to look up, was that in the New York Times or the LA Times?
The LA Times. I'll send it to you.
Oh, good.
But Donald Whitehead, I know you're with us, and we are going to talk about homelessness. But Susie Shannon asked us to move to the top of the third hour, so it's going to be at 4 o'clock Pacific time, 7 o'clock Eastern, and we'll have 20 minutes. I hope you can stick with us till then.
Sluggo, if Donald can't wait, maybe we can hear from Donald and then hear from Susie, because Donald's taking some time.
I'm fine to wait.
Oh, thank
that'd
you
be
so
great,
much, Donald.
And we're going to have a
Wonderful.
really interesting hour. The next hour, in 15 minutes, we'll be joined by Greg Palast, and we're really going to go deep into the massive assault on the right to vote. And we hope that you'll participate, and I will call you on in that. So let's deal with energy here until the top of the hour. We got the great KARL GROSSMAN with us, and I do want to take this opportunity. I've been going green for decades, but in my college career, I was blue because I went to the University of Michigan. I always like to say, Harvard turned me down. They really recognized someone who was not Ivy League material. That was me. But I wound up going to a much better university than Harvard, which is the University of Michigan. There has never been a time in American history when the University of Michigan football team could not have crushed the Harvard football team. And we, of course, take that very seriously. We also had a much better student newspaper. So there you go. But Ann Arbor, which is one of the most wonderful places on earth, I loved Ann Arbor and still do, has made a decision to go green. They are going to go very heavily into renewables in Ann Arbor and do microgrids in the city of Ann Arbor. It's a very, very big deal, especially, and this I tell this, well, when we first start going nuclear, anti-nuclear, no nukes, at my hippie farm in Massachusetts, I stumbled across a book called We Almost Lost Detroit. It was written by a guy named John G. Fuller, who was writing for that very radical publishing house, Reader's Digest, and couldn't get more right-wing than Reader's Digest. And Carl will remember this. They published this book about how the Fermi nuclear plant, Unit 1, in Monroe, Michigan, almost blew up. Literally, almost. It could have blown up. It was a fast breeder. It had liquid sodium in there, and this was on October 5th, 1966. And I'm reading this book, and about 20 pages in, I realized that I had been in Ann Arbor at exactly the moment that this plant was about to blow up. And I was on the paper. I was editorial director of the Daily. We had wire machines, the whole deal. None of us knew anything about this reactor near explosion that would have killed us all. And so here we are. But now Ann Arbor, it's 100,000 people. They could go totally green with microgrids. The whole deal is a very big deal. Carl, you should look into that. It'd be a great. I'll send you the links. It's a great article
Please.
To look at. I also want to very briefly say that Finland is now claiming they have a solution to the nuclear waste problem. They have a deep repository, or as we refer to it as a suppository, which they claim can go for 10,000 years. But as MYLA RESON well knows, having been in New Mexico, they opened a waste dump at Carlsbad, New Mexico, which soon thereafter had an explosion. So there you go. Let's go, Mike, very quickly, Steve, and then we'll go to Lynn Feinerman and HEIDE Vertauer. Mike, Steve, do you have anything to jump in with real quick?
Yeah, real quick, Carl, please share the link to your article because it sounds absolutely fascinating. And I also want to thank you for keeping Long Island from becoming a nuclear park or nuclear, glow zone or whatever, because
Dead zone.
it's been quite a while, a few decades since I drove on the Long Island Expressway. But I can imagine what a nightmare it would be trying to evacuate Long Island in the event of a disaster.
Right.
The traffic is terrible on a regular day. And I think that at the very least, anybody who talks about maintaining these plants needs to show an evacuation plan that would save people's lives. And then the answer is
Well,
they wouldn't be able to come up with one because
no. Long
the
Island,
traffic.
Mike, Long Island had a perfectly valid evacuation plan if Shoreham blew up, which was to swim to Martha's Vineyard.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That's how it was going to happen. So,
Well, if you were on the ocean side, that might be a little difficult. You'd have to
or
go
you
the
could
long
run,
way
you'd have to
around.
run across the island, but
Yeah, it's
Actually,
yeah.
there was a
Go ahead, Carl.
public official on Long Island named Joe Caputo. This is serious. And what he said, if it's the winter and the Long Island Sound is frozen, no, really, this was his position. People could ice skate to Connecticut. I mean, to show you the idiots. Talking about idiocy.
That's crazy.
I posted the URL for the article, which
Thank you.
again was on Counterpunch, high up in the chat, but also down in the chat. I have this national TV show called Enviro Close Up, and what we currently are showing is Dr. Helen Caldicott and Nuclear Madness, and she's as sharp as she ever was. And
yeah,
she's well, again, it's madness. It's all madness.
right.
Thank you so
Helen's
much,
fabulous.
Carl.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you, Mike. Go ahead, Steve, then Lynn, then Heidi. Steve, did you have something you want to jump in with?
Yes. So quid pro quo. All these guys come out cocksure that nuclear is going to solve their problem. Meanwhile, there seems like there might be a slight back off of that, but with this revelation, God knows. Like in Ohio, we had earthquakes here caused by fracking
Right.
recently, and the states backed off. They're shutting that down. But this is actually injection well. So at some point in time, can we put a self-harm clause in against these people? I mean, these people, I'm serious. They're ridiculous. They're harming not only themselves, but everybody else. It's just
Right.
too much.
Well, and I have to point out that for a long time, the Perry nuclear plant on Lake Erie was the only American atomic reactor to be damaged by an earthquake. And it's now been damaged a second time by an earthquake in Perry, Ohio. And I guarantee you, growing up in Ohio, no one ever talked about an earthquake. But there you go. Lynn Feinerman and Heidi. And I want to talk very briefly before we get to Greg about the article that's run at the Free Press now about using business cards for QR codes at rallies. But go ahead, Lynn Feinerman and Heidi.
Yes, I think that we need to keep in mind the political context here and the fact that nuclear has been on the verge of bankruptcy in this nation for a long time, and they are gambling. They are gambling with all of our lives to make money. And so they put a lot of money in the pockets of people like Gavin Newsom, and they spend everything they can spend in order to make sure that the people are thwarted. In California, the people said, shut down Diablo Canyon. They made it very clear. And so what we're looking at here is a Hail Mary gamble, has nothing to do with energy or with providing appropriate energy. It has to do with the fact that these nuclear power plants and nuclear power companies are going bankrupt. And so they're spending their final money on trying to influence politics. And this is what Hochul is about. This is certainly what Gavin Newsom is about, along with PG&E. And it's also about thwarting public energy. After Paradise, PG&E, there was a huge groundswell to make PG&E public, to statize energy in California. Right. And so we're looking at a connection to American politics and American democracy that's really key, really crucial.
Right. And one thing we want to emphasize here in California is, is that you got the Olympics coming, and the Olympic it's beyond insane to stage the Olympics, which the whole world is watching, downwind from a nuclear plant that could blow up at any moment. I mean, we had this actually it was, at Fukushima. Fukushima was upwind from the Tokyo Olympics. Should never have happened. And there were radioactive hotspots in Tokyo during the Olympics. Heidi, go ahead, and then I want to do very quickly visit the business card thing. We'll let Karl wrap, and then Greg Powers will join us. Heidi Vertaler, please.
Yes, thank you so much. I just wanted to let you know that I dropped a couple of links into the chat that I hope you folks will take a look at. One is the thing about anti-nuclear stance, and then the other is the clean green energy economy. And because I do think that we need to stay away from nuclear. I did go to the funeral of Anatoly Grushenko. He was one of the helicopter pilots that flew over
Wow.
Chernobyl. And I made it my business to go there to thank his wife for his service, because I felt like, this woman needs to be thanked for his heroic work. And so there's this stuff about that, and there's stuff about Fukushima and all kinds of stuff in my post.
Well, thank you for that, Heidi. We definitely really appreciate that. I will say that I spoke in Russia, Kaliningrad, in the 10th anniversary of the accident at Chernobyl, and that was in 1996, and I met many of what we call liquidators. During Chernobyl, the worst of it, the Soviet Union sent 600,000 people into the reactor to clean it up, 90 seconds each, allegedly. They were called liquidators. And I met these guys, almost all men, when I spoke at a rally at the 10th anniversary. And I have never met angrier people. I mean, these guys
Wow.
are they're all dying of cancer. They'd all been forced in there against their will. They all knew what was going on. And that's one of the reasons the Soviet Union fell, is because, they were the only analogous group I can think of was the Vietnam vets against the war, who were also really fierce. And but anyway, Heidi, thank you for that. We appreciate it. And Karl, stick with us. We're joined by Greg Powers, who can give us 4 minutes, Greg, and we're going to start with the democracy. I do want to mention that we've put out a piece, thanks to Lee Felsenstein, which is at freepress.org and on our website. Steve, maybe you can show the suggesting that there's going to be tens of millions of people at rallies going forward now, with the U.S. on the brink of fascism. And we've been discussing how best to organize these people so that the rallies don't turn into photo. Oh, there's Lee. Hey, Lee. We do want to. We came up with an idea. It was really Lee had at the base of a lot of it, that the organizers of these rallies should consider giving business cards with QR codes on them, so that the business cards should be printed on hemp or recycled paper, and they should have a QR code that will lead them to a website established by the local organizers. And Lee's suggestion to be on colored paper or with colored ink, so that they can't be counterfeited, and that would be a way to have people follow up. And leaflets have been tried. It's not a good thing, because people don't hold on to them, and they get thrown away. There are gathering signatures, of course, is the time-honored way to do that. I have done that, and it's really inefficient. And you wind up with bad, at least 10, 20% of the emails that people give you are bad, just for bad handwriting, and then bad transcriptions. Lee, did you want to add to this? The article about it is at the Free Press website. Steve just flashed the link. Lee?
Yeah, well, I got an email, and hey, my name in lights. Okay, I don't know how far it goes, but it's farther than blowing hot air here. And of course, was telling myself before the meeting, it's like, okay, well, so is somebody going to organize something? But I must admit that if you talk about it enough, people may just think it's a good idea and go do it themselves because it doesn't require any particular skill. And I do want to acknowledge that when I first responded to your query, Harvey, Sluggo, I had another method in mind, which turned out not to be terribly practical. And it was a woman here whose name I can't recall because I'm very bad at remembering names, who said, "Yeah, well, we have been trying business cards and they're better." And she was right. And I don't know, say she ought to get some credit. So whoever it was, if I think you're here,
Right.
ask for credit.
Well, there you go. Did she also invent Post-it notes? That's a really deep joke, actually. But anyway, Lee, thank you so much for your guidance on this, and we do want to continue the work to establish the Eco Broadcast Network. I do very want to briefly and thank you, Lee. And like we say, the link to the article, which is at freepress.org, is in the chat. Steve just ran it. You can go to freepress.org. I've sent it around the internet, so we'll see if people start. The one thing about handing out business cards for follow-up is that people have got to remember to transcribe it or scan it before you wash your pants, because people are, put the business card in your pants. So you got to remember to do that beforehand. And I did want Paul Newman. We mentioned you're in LA with a solar panel on your house and being attacked. Are they attempting now to tax your solar panel that you put on your house years ago? Is that part of the Newsom's attack on renewables here?
What's going on is they're changing the law so that people before 2023, I'm sorry, which is me, 2019. When I sell my house, I'll have to pay a tax on my solar.
Oh my God.
And it's I have it right here. It is AB 942. And one of the people on the assembly, her name is Lisa Calderon, has filed a bill to break 2 more solar contracts. So there'd be net metering 1 and net metering 2. I guess net metering 1 was after 2023 and net metering 2 is before 2023. So, and hi, Greg. Anyway, so that's what's going on. Now, I paid $35 a month for the processing of my solar to Southern California Edison. And now I pay $90 a month.
Oh my God.
So, I mean, originally it was, if you paid $200 a month, that would be considered, a reason to get solar. And they're trying to make it not cost effective, and they want to tax it some more. It's insane. And they got somebody who's on Southern California Edison, who's in the assembly.
Paul, I just wanted to point out we only have Greg for a very short time.
Okay.
So we'd like to circle back and get back to this because this is so important, and we really appreciate your report.
And I love Greg, man. He's the man.
Well, Greg is also a great pioneer in in fighting nukes. He was very involved at Shoreham, and I think they actually fitted him for a pair of cement shoes at one point, Greg. But
I prosecuted the company, the nuclear industry for racketeering, successfully working with the Justice Department and other authorities. So
well, now we're looking at
a crime wave, but now we're looking at a new a new issue.
So go ahead, Greg is, of course, at the forefront of the movement to save the right to vote in America, starting with Florida 2000, where you were a great and solo pioneer, and your career. There is now in this country a viable election protection movement, and you are. Yes. We did the paternity test, and you are a godfather. So now take us away.
All right. Well, Greg is known for his investigative reports for the Guardian, and for his bestsellers, including The Best Democracy Money Can Buy. His latest film, Vigilantes, Inc., America's New Vote Suppression Hitmen, centers on the challenge to voters by the Trump-sponsored group True the Vote. You can see the film for free on YouTube. And as always, we love to have you with us, Greg. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much for having me here. And I'm here basically to introduce someone else, Major Gamaliel Turner, and who is the star of my film, Vigilantes Inc., narrated by Rosario Dawson. And I have the link to that film onto YouTube, so it's now free. So let me tell you, one of the things that Harvey asked me to come in to discuss with Major Turner is a vital case. Now in the 11th Circuit on appeal of Fair Fight, which is Stacey Abrams' organization, versus True the Vote. And the issue is vigilante vote challenges. And I don't know if you saw the clip from my film, and I guess I can do it as a host, right? Let's
Well,
see.
we can't really show a film because we'll get in trouble with YouTube, but we can definitely
No,
Well,
it's on YouTube, but it doesn't matter. But I want people to watch this because here's why. Here's what it's about. In beginning in 2020, for the senatorial runoff in Georgia, this group True the Vote challenged hundreds of thousands of voters. Now, who is True the Vote to do this? No one. They're just self-appointed vigilante vote fraud hunter. And they literally, in Georgia alone, challenged more than 300,000 voters. And while we were able to block that at that year, they did successfully mount challenges against hundreds of thousands in Georgia in 2020. Undoubtedly a core reason why the state flipped back to Trump from 2020. Now, what are these challenges? We've talked many times here about purges by the government, removing people from the voter rolls because the Secretary of State decides you didn't live in Georgia, and this is throughout other states. I expect another 5 million illegal removals in 2026, or not 2026. This year, the purges are done this year. But now, what about these vigilante votes? This group, True the Vote, and by the way, Major Turner's on with us, be with us shortly.
We also have Donald Whitehead with us, who's got some experience here too. So go ahead.
Yes, okay, this is important. And so as you'll find out if you watch the film, and he can explain again his own story. He was a Major Turner's career military back in 2020. He was assigned by the Pentagon to Fort Hueneme here in California, and so he was challenged. He did not get his absentee ballot, and even if you're a black soldier, allowed to get an absentee ballot. So he called up, and he'll explain it. He called up his office and said, "Well, where's my absentee ballot?" He said, "Mr. Turner, you have been challenged." Said, "What does that mean?" He said, someone, not a government agent, turned out to be the vice chair of the Republican Party and the chairman of the party in Muskogee County, where Fort Benning is. The chairman of the Republican Party, who's not an elected official by any means, challenged Major Turner's right to vote on the grounds he didn't live in Georgia. Well, he's a soldier assigned, a military expert assigned to California. And they said, "Well, Major Turner or Mr. Turner, you can vote. Just all you have to do is come into our office, prove you're a citizen, prove your Georgia address, and we'll give you your ballot." And he said, and he'll explain again because it's worth hearing twice. He said, "Wait, so you're telling me 2-3 days before an election that all I have to do is fly 2,700 miles to Georgia to prove I'm an American citizen again?" Now, I haven't said, but you can probably figure out that Major Turner is an African American. And as you'll find out in the film Vigilante, they picked on the wrong guy because his father, Reverend Harold Turner, was one of the co-founders of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference with Martin Luther King. In fact, ultimately, to get his rights back, he did ultimately fly all the way to Georgia. But imagine what you have to do to get your vote back. And he did sue to get his vote counted. His attorney, Mark Elias, came down. And while Major Turner won his right to vote, imagine what he had to do to get his single vote counted. Bring in Mark Elias from Washington to bring a federal court action. And the federal courts gave Major Turner his vote, but this Republican Party vice chair, this operative, who, by the way, you'll see in the film, actually dresses like a vigilante with 6 guns, the whole thing. He thinks of himself as a vigilante, Doc Holliday. He challenged 4,000 voters. We called 800 of them. Overwhelmingly, they were soldiers of color. You're not going to be surprised. And none of them got their votes back. Only Major Turner got his vote back because he actually flew in to go to court. Now, if this were, so 4,000 voters lost their right to vote. Now, it came back with a vengeance because it was successful, not enough in 2020. But then the law was changed under SB 202 and HB 185, I think is the number, but SB 202, which specifically authorized any individual, and I'm not just talking any individual, not a government agent, but you or I can say Harvey Wasserman doesn't live in California. He shouldn't be allowed to vote. So 20 states have these vigilante voter laws, first used by the Ku Klux Klan in 1946. That's where that comes from. It's a Ku Klux Klan plan revived by this Trump Front organization, True the Vote, out of Texas. In the last election, they challenged by August. They rolled it out after Georgia. They rolled it out nationwide. And by August of last year, of the election year, True the Vote alone challenged over 300,000 voters. These are vigilante voters. They had no basis for any of these challenges. And in Georgia, because it was now authorized under SB 02, I was told by Gerald Griggs, the president of the NAACP, I don't know how many challenges came through at the end, but he thought 300 challenges in just Georgia, 300,000 voters challenged. This was barely covered in the press, and this flipped Georgia. Now, Major Turner has continued his fight, and he'll tell you what he's gone through. But right now, to know that Fair Fight sued True the Vote for intimidating voters, a violation of the Voting Rights Act, what little is left of the Voting Rights Act. And Major Turner story was central to the court case. Unfortunately, they made, frankly, very straight, Stacey Abrams' lawyers made some strategic procedural errors, which were caught by the judge, unfortunately. For example, my film, which I don't hope you'll all see. I'm going to require you to see Vigilantes, Inc., America's New Vote Suppression Hitmen, so you can meet Major Turner on celluloid and his whole wonderful family, and meet the SOB, this guy who dresses up like a vigilante. You'll meet him too, because Major Turner confronts the man in his own house, and you'll enjoy that. So download or go to gregpalace.com, download it, or just go to YouTube. But what happened is that the federal district judge noted that, for example, you can't use a film as evidence unless it's quite a procedure. I'd have to fly in and verify it, et cetera. So because the film was not, in the end, was excluded from evidence, and much of Major Turner's story was excluded from evidence, the court basically threw out the Fair Fight lawsuit because of technical matters. So it just went to argument before the 11th Circuit, the appeals court in Atlanta, I believe. And two of the judges, I'm just about done, excuse me. Two of the judges, and this is vital, two of the judges said, well, yeah, there were procedural errors on the part of Fair Fight, but this is not about procedure. This is about every American's right to vote. And so now I'd like to introduce retired Major Gamaliel Turner, who is joining us from Georgia, from Muskogee County, correct, Major?
Correct, if you could hear me, Greg.
Yes. Okay, well, thank you very much. And I'll listen for a bit, but then I have to go back to my edit on my new film.
Yes.
Go ahead,
Gigi,
please.
yes, Gigi, Greg, thank you all. And for those that have dialed in, thank you for this opportunity just to share a little bit of my stories. Greg had indicated it is captured in Vigilantes, Inc. I implore you to go out there and watch it. Yes, it talked about actions leading up to the election, but it talks more of the soul of America. As I was scrolling through the participants, I noticed that most of you all were born before 1970, which is a good thing. So you understand America. What I will give you, what I went through and what others have gone through their entire life over the last 3 generations or the last 300 years in America is atrocious. I just want to vote like everyone else. And it's not as simple of a thing. I have a right to vote. My father, my grandfather, and others for my people at the time fought, argued, went to court, died, were beaten, jailed for the right to vote. As a child, I witnessed this black and white world of America. I witnessed the atrocities of it. So we fast forward to today. We all know the history of voting, especially in the South. We try to vote. We want to vote. We want to participate in the process. We are still fighting for equal rights. And here I am, a veteran, fighting for my country. The first thing I did was register my absentee ballot as a Georgia resident to make sure that I did not miss the elections leading up to the primaries. and leading up to the general election. To have had a little bit of administrative problems leading up, but not enough to be concerned. And then all of a sudden we have the general election, and we are in the midst of a runoff, and everybody knows we have less than 30 days in between the runoffs to get the ballots out, to get them signed and get them back in. And for whatever reason, I did not receive my absentee ballots. All of my friends, all my families have received theirs. So I called back into the registrar's office in Georgia because I'm active and say, hey, I haven't received my ballot. What's going on? And what I got was, Mr. Turner, you've been challenged. What is that? The register didn't even know. What it came down to was I had been challenged by an individual using my change of address submission as not being a citizen of the state of Georgia or a resident of the state of Georgia. I am very proud of being from Georgia. I've paid my taxes in the state of Georgia my entire military career. I've owned a home for 20, 30 years in Georgia. My car is painted the same color as Atlanta Falcons. So I am more Georgian than anybody else could be. I even live on, my family is right there on Martin Luther King Drive in Atlanta. So I'm all about the Peak State. But to find out that I was challenged for no reason at all, as far as I'm concerned, it threw me. Imagine in your life that all of a sudden somebody told you that you were not a resident of the state, that you could not vote, even though you voted 7 times in the last 8 months. And all of a sudden here, 3 weeks before a runoff election, a vital runoff election for the state and for our nation, that you're told that you cannot vote. In the documentary, Greg asked me how did I feel about it. And as a airborne ranger infantry guy, emotions swelled up in me that I have not felt since I was a child. I even asked Greg to get it out of the, take it out of the documentary because I didn't want anybody to see me like that. I did not know who that person was. But here recently, I've played back in my mind, why is that so? It is the trauma of coming up in a segregated South, the trauma of hearing Martin Luther King, and I'm not just saying this casually. My father was Ralph David Abernathy's assistant pastor, still the assistant pastor of West 100th Street Baptist Church. Abernathy, as we know, was King's number 2 guys. We all live within 4 or 5 houses of each other, or 4 or 5 blocks of each other. So as a child, and I was the oldest child of all of their children. So we grew up not knowing what was what, but I grew up with the fear of the Jim Crow South. I grew up in a segregated South. I was not allowed or able to go to an integrated school in my life. I graduated from an all-Black institution, HBCU, at Fort Valley State. I'm saying all of that to say the Black man and his vote, and the mere fact that we cannot vote equally and freely without pause in America is atrocious. I love the fact that you all are focused in on voting. I love the fact that you're focused in on the right to vote and counting every vote, because that's what our whole nation should be about. I know that that's what I am about. No one should have to go through what I went through, to have to pay to vote. Greg talked about the 3,000 and some votes in Muskogee County that were challenged by the head of the Republican Party. Here's my caring concern. He told me, not on camera, I wished it was. He told me, I am going to find out what happened. I am upset with them. They were not supposed to not mail you your absentee ballot. You see, that in itself shows a plan. If I received my absentee ballot, I would have voted via absentee ballot. I would have sent it back, whether it was received on time or set in the corner. My ballot prior to the election was already programmed not to be counted, along with the other 3,000 votes. We received no notice of being challenged. Even after the court ordered that we were to be allowed to vote, there was no notice other than to me that the other 3,000 some folk could vote. Now, mind you, the average age of the individual that's probably got caught up in is either some military guys, some senior citizens. But when you go to vote and you don't understand the full process, because it has been a lifelong process of denial for us at the ballot place. And you're told, well, there's something wrong here. You've been challenged. So what does that mean? Well, here's a provisional ballot. You take this over there and fill it out. If it was not for the courts, no telling what would have happened to those provisional ballots. Even today, I could dare tell you that the people that did not get their ballots did not get their ballot. They did not get the vote. The people that were given the provisional ballots, their votes were not counted. When you talk to an election like the one that we had, or even in Georgia, where my 11,797 votes, every single vote counts. They know that. And in this particular case, when we try to preach to everyone, it's important that you vote, that one vote can make a difference. In this particular case, my desire to vote and follow up on my ability to vote, open up the door to expose the intimidation of every possible candidate, voter that they could pull in the state of Georgia. 3,000 in Columbus, Georgia, and over 30-some thousand in Cobb County. And if you know anything about Georgia, that's where the majority of the minority votes come from. I'm going to stop there because I'm quite sure that there are some questions. I know that we're on the clock, but if I don't get back to you, thank you for having an opportunity and to speak to you. And I will only give you one thing. When we talk about voter intimidation, you cannot apply the 1960s Jim Crow voter intimidation, because that's yesterday, to burning, hanging, being fired from your job, your house burning down. We must look at it in today's light, and that's taking advantage of the uninformed for putting a little bit of intimidation, a little bit of fear back into the minds, hearts, and souls of those who are already being intimidated every day about their right to vote. Thank you.
Well, that was pretty mind-boggling. I want to go back to Greg, and then we'll go to Ruth Strauss, who is actually from Alabama. But Greg, do you want to jump in and continue this? And thank you so much for this. It's mind-boggling to hear this. Go ahead, Greg. Greg Palast, are you still with us?
We might be a little. See if get Ruth in there.
Okay, Ruth Strauss, please. Go ahead, Ruth, and Gamilio, if you'll listen in. Ruth is from what town are you from in Alabama, Ruth?
Mobile.
Mobile. You were stuck inside of Mobile.
Mobile with the
with
Memphis Blues again. Absolutely. And I am grateful that I was born in Mobile, Alabama, because it informed my politics, and I was politicized by the time I was 5 years old, and that is no joke. You know, kids know when they see things that aren't right. Anyway, I am telling everybody, and it's too bad that Greg is not on the line, but Camille, please tell him that film is a must-see. It is hysterically funny, you know, historically informative, and, you know, politically, you know, a must. And so I'm just telling everybody, you will not be disappointed. You will be, you know, motivated by fear and anger to get out and do something. And it really is, it's very entertaining as well as alarming, and a great motivator. So people need to watch it. That's all.
The movie is called Vigilantes Inc.
Right.
Yes. And Gamilio, you're a major, is that right?
I am major retired. 20 years of service.
We're going to call you Major Turner, if you don't mind. And Mike Hersh, did you want to jump in with this incredible story? And also Donald Whitehead, you're on the line. If you want to jump in, it would be great to hear from you about this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Sluggo. Yeah, I've seen Greg's movies several times each, and nothing is more horrifying to me than what these state laws have empowered a bunch of literal vigilantes to do. And as Greg points out in his film, they borrowed their name from Klan and Klan-inspired vigilantes who would use violence and intimidation, murder to suppress Black people, their voting rights, and their rights to live and to just exist in this country. And it's a very sordid, blood-soaked narrative that goes back centuries on this continent. It's a horrible stain, and it's no question why Trump all the way down, all these right-wingers want to censor our history books to get rid of all of this. And thank you so much, Major Turner, for being a witness to this. And we're going to stand with you and stand behind you and help amplify your testimony because it's so very important. And I see Donald's ready to speak as well.
Donald, and then Ray McClendon, you're in Atlanta. If you want to join in, and you have a great group, you've been involved with these issues right from the get-go. So Donald Whitehead, and then Ray, if you want to jump in, please do. We still have 76 people with us. Go ahead.
Awesome.
Donald Whitehead.
Really amazing presentation. And I loved one of the remarks at the end when he talked about the intimidation for people that are already intimidated, if you will. We have our "You Don't Need a Home to Vote" campaign, and often people who have absolute right to vote in this country that are in unsheltered situation are often removed from the rolls or prevented from getting the materials they need to be able to vote. So we have seen that over the course of 2 decades. But what really is, I think, the most frightening thing about this situation to me is the changes at the Justice Department, the Civil Rights Division. Actually, their entire mission has been changed. And so many of the cases that we saw that would be coming before the Justice Department, and there were a couple that dealt with homelessness as well, are not certainly going to be adjudicated before the end of this term, unless there's a dramatic change in the electorate. We do have some really big hurdles. I know that the case in Louisiana was dropped, and I know that there's a couple more. So really, the outlook for voting rights is not positive, and we really have to fight. We went from registering people to vote to actually educating people to vote, because many people, we published the laws in every state, and we were very successful in getting people that were experiencing homelessness to the polls. But though that information is so valuable for anybody, and we went from the education to actually getting out and registering people to vote. This year, we actually want to look at actually taking people to the polls. And I know we'll talk a little bit more about homelessness in general, but what is happening every day in our country is some community is deciding whether or not to criminalize people. And so it's, we get excited sometimes about the presidential election or even the midterm election, but people are being criminalized based on local ordinances and local elections. So those elections are just as important as the national. So
Yeah,
that's all I want to add.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That was it. I just wanted to add that, people really have to be wary, not just of the criminalization of homelessness, but there's all kinds of ordinances at the local level that we just don't pay enough attention to. So very important that we stay plugged in at the local.
That's Donald Whitehead, one of the great leaders of the movement on to end homelessness in America. Ray McClendon, are you with us? Do you want to chime in here, Ray?
Hey, Sluggo, it's great to be with you as always. And this certainly is a very important topic, and a great film. I've had an opportunity to see it and was riveted by the major story. The sad part is that this is not a unique story. Georgia is seeing this happen over and over again, both by vigilantes, but also we have the legal part of voter suppression that's being carried on by our state government. We have an insane local election board, state election board that is adopting many of these same tactics and trying to codify these tactics and make it easier for these vigilantes to raise these challenges and simultaneously make it more difficult for the local election boards to actually reject the challenges. This is going to continue. We've talked in the past, many of you will remember that this election board was praised, state election board was praised by Trump during the campaign, that he was proud of these Georgia State Election Board members who essentially were doing his bidding. He called them by name in one of his rallies in 2024. So we have a significant problem not only with the MAGA party members that are the actual vigilantes, but by the government itself that is systemically promulgating regulations and throwing sand in the gears to make it more difficult for people of color, in particular, to vote. This is going to be a big problem that we see this summer. The Secretary of State's office has already announced that they're going to do almost 500,000 voter purges in July, starting in July, in anticipation of going into 2026 midterm elections. So the process is not just the vigilantes, but it's the entire voter suppression system that is in place in many states in the South that we got to continue to fight.
It's mind-boggling, in this day and age. And of course, a lot of it now has migrated from rallies and cross burnings to electronic purges, right, Ray? I mean, that's the core of it.
Well, the major made made an excellent point. I'm grew up here in the South myself. I know what he was talking about. Yeah, and they're no longer the lynchings. They're no longer the cross burnings that we had to endure when we were children. As much now as the intimidating tactics are out in the open and being done with the color of law on their side. And that's what the difference is today when you see what's going on with this administration in particular, and a lot of these state government officials where they're in situations where we are in Georgia, where they control the governor's office and both chambers of the legislature. They can essentially do what they want to do. And that's what they have been able to do, is to use the levels of government in order to take us into more of a voter suppression 2.0, where we're not having to count jelly beans in a jar, but we're having to jump through all of these hoops now, with these more onerous provisions. I don't know if you all saw down in Florida where this woman can't get a driver's license because she does not have a birth certificate, because she grew up in the Jim Crow South, was born in South Carolina, and did not receive a birth certificate. So she's been driving, I think she's 75, 76 years old, been driving her whole life, been driving in Florida for 50 plus years, and now she can't get her license renewed. Well, I was thinking about how bad it is for a license, but also that means if she can't get her license renewed, she's not going to be able to vote either. And these are the kinds of things that we see happening today, having more onerous provisions on ID, more requirements that are more onerous for rural and low-income people. And those are all of the systemic components that the government is using to reduce the number of people that actually participate in the democratic process.
Whoa, man. This is hard stuff. Ruth Strauss, do you still have your hand up? Did you want to speak?
I do. Ray, what do we do? Okay, is it Fair Fight? Is it Andrea? Is it NAACP Georgia? What?
It's all of the above. We got to fight on all fronts. The fight is certainly going to be in the courts, but as someone mentioned earlier, heretofore, you had the federal government at least fighting on the side of protecting rights, and now you have a government, a federal administration that is now on the side of the suppressors. So we're gonna need to fight more with on that front with folks like Fair Fight. We are going to have to do more with grassroots organizations to get the word out on what they need to do in order to protect their votes. And it's going to take all of those grassroots organizations in order to do that. So it's going to take all of us collectively to inform the public on what's going on, to inform those, what I call, many people call low information and low propensity voters on what they have to do, how important it is for them to know their rights and protect their voting rights in order to make changes in their local community.
Real quick,
Donald Whitehead or
Ray,
Major Turner, you want to jump in on that?
yeah, two things, and he's very important. But let me share something else that touched me during this process of making the documentary. Might not mean much to others, but it means a lot to me. When Greg had the showing in Hollywood, so you can imagine, oh, we're doing the Hollywood showing. And I walked into the theater. When I looked into the crowd, I looked around and I was the youngest person in the theater. And it was packed, standing room only. Now, and they were all white. Having grown up in the South and know that the sacrifices of others other than my color, the white people that have stood behind the equality in this nation from the 50s to the 60s, I am looking at the last of them with that level of dedication. When I listen to you all talk here, I know who you are. I know what you're about. And you have been about equality and trying to ensure that this nation does what it's supposed to do. My fear is there are two generations of us still living that actually saw the signs, that lived the life. My father's still living, my uncle is still living, that were in the documentaries, and I'm in my 70s. Once we are gone, the ability to put a cause and effect in this evolution of man of ours, this evolution that our country is going through, this evolution of relationship between people of color and our government and our upcoming and future laws, if we allow this to stand, it stands forever. And what gets lost is not just our democracy, but it is our soul of a nation, one nation, under God, indivisible, justice for all. That's what we're in the verge of losing. So I support you, Ray, and the other efforts to ensure that people have the right. We should be talking about who in 2025, we should be talking about who we vote for and what we vote for. Voting and ability to vote should not even be an issue. We're too great of a nation for that to be a thing. Thank you.
Pretty amazing. Donald Whitehead, you want to jump in on that?
No, I don't think I can add much. I think what has been said is absolutely spot on, and it does require us to really mobilize and organize and use all of the available tools, all of the available organizations, and not wait until the eve of the election to do that. We got to really start moving on this now, and it also means making sure that the right candidates are in office that are going to fight this, because the voices of those fighting, you haven't heard many voices actually at the federal elected level talking about this. So we need to find candidates that will talk.
Well, I don't want to get partisan here, but I do have to say that the Democratic Party does a fantastic job of ignoring vote suppression.
That was my point. That was my point exactly.
You know, we saw in Florida 2000, Al Gore would not allow the Black Caucus to raise the issue of the stolen election in Florida. He was presiding over the Congress, the Black Caucus. He was the vice president. The Black Caucus wanted to have a constitutional challenge on what had happened in Florida 2000. Al Gore would not let it happen. I was the witness in Ohio 2004 to what I thought was pretty clearly the theft of an election. And John Kerry just took a hike. He actually went windsurfing rather than raise the issue. We saw it again in 2016, where Hillary Clinton was offered a recount in Michigan by a judge who thought that there were problems, as there were in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania in 2016. And she wouldn't even do a recount in Michigan in 2016. And then in 24, we see again major questions raised about the computerized vote counts, and of course now the challenges in Georgia. And again, the Democratic Party nowhere to be seen. So I think they should change their name or something. but it's quite frustrating. Let's go to Lynn Finerman. Lynn is a radio talk host. Donald and Ray, I think you know Lynn, and Major Turner. Lynn, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I wanted to just for clarification, I mean, apropos of getting started now and turning this around, what are the resources that people have to get their registration reinstated, both with the challenges and the purges, and what are the differences? Is it harder to get your vote reinstated with a challenge? It's just for clarification for me and anybody else who missed it. Thanks.
Yeah, sure. Well, the simplest way to do it, Lynn, is to just simply re-register, and that's available. So the simplest, straightforward way is to re-register. In the past, what we have done is we've sent out postcards to everyone that's been identified that we know of that's being challenged. These are for the government-led challenges. We don't necessarily know about all of the vigilante challenges, but on the government-led challenges, typically we can get a list of those, and we can notify those folks as well in order to ensure that they understand that their right to vote is being their voting rights are being purged from the state of Georgia rolls. So we can do that. What we've been doing with the local election boards is working with various boards, and some of them are pretty good at this. Like Fulton County is decent, Gwinnett County, where there are diverse boards. Then with the funding to have their own legal counsel, they were beginning to reject more and more of these mass challenges. And so that's been helpful. There's still many of them are still being brought. Some of them are getting through, but not to the tune of what we saw at first as the boards become more sophisticated on how to respond to this. So we've got to help to educate the local election boards, and then we've got to notify voters because as the major stated, you won't necessarily know that you've been struck or purged until you don't get something that you would normally get, such as an absentee ballot. If the major had been trying to just vote in person, then he would just show up on election day and they would say, oh, you're no longer on the rolls. And so you're at a point then where you don't have an opportunity to cure. So a part of this is to get people informed, to identify those who are under challenge, inform them and explain to them what their rights are to make sure that they will be able to vote, and to get that out early enough so they have enough time to cure the situation.
Just real quick, if I could, I can't find my little hand thingy, so excuse me for interrupting.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead, please. You're open to speak here whenever you want. So go ahead.
Time is not our friend. Time is not our friend. And they are playing a serious game of continue to play checkers. Just because we take step one and step two to offset what they are doing doesn't mean that we have done anything. Let me tell you how this goes. So I get back to Georgia. They don't know that I'm in Georgia. And I did just as Greg talked to. I went down and physically voted, and they couldn't get me. But I had checked. I went online, and I checked my registration. Now, my wife's, if you were looking at it, it was perfect. State resident, Georgia. Absentee ballot address, California. Street name, state resident, Georgia. Absentee ballot request, Georgia. Same residence. But we're in California, or the state of Georgia, remember? I go over and check mine. Now, mind you, they've mailed me my absentee ballot, and we have talked to it every time I've gotten ready to vote. So I look at mine. My Georgia address is perfect. When I look at my California address, it looks almost perfect. They misspelled the street name. Now, mind you, I've got 4 or 5 ballots that made it to me. That ballot would not have reached me again because the street name was in error, and the street they changed. I stayed on Loza, L-O-Z-A Drive. They changed it L-O-G-A Drive. So it would have gone to California. The street didn't exist. could not afford it. They would send it back to Georgia. My wife would have come to the house here that was empty, changed the address to send it to California. Is a state ballot. They would not have sent it to Georgia. This is not a mistake. I am old enough and been around long enough to know, and you've seen it yourself. People do have a tendency to go back into the office in Georgia and do things. Now, when I fill out my initial form in 18 and says, is this where you want all your absentee ballots to be sent? And I get the first 3. And then all of a sudden this childish stuff and all of this crap about messing around happens. Now all of a sudden I have a problem with the ballots. But here's my point for you. And I try to tell this to every group that's concerned with encouraging people to get registered to vote and to check their ballots and to cure their ballots. Don't trust the system. And I know how that sounds. If you go in, you go check, your information's in there, check it often. Because I'm telling you, at some stage of the game, at the last minute, something is subject to change. It has happened to me over and over and over again here in Muskogee County. And do me a favor, gentlemen, when we talk about provisional ballots and curing the ballots, take one more step for me. Educate the people you're talking to. Peel the curing the ballot back. Explain to them exactly what has to happen. Because when you are caught in a position to have to cure your ballot, time is not your friend.
Well, I'm wondering, has there been any talk of retaliation? I mean, obviously, you would think that this division, that most of the people who are being challenged are black. Is there any talk of starting to challenge white voters?
See, that's the advantage. We don't do that. We're a God-fearing people, and we don't do tit for tat. However, I wish somebody else other than me. But no, and I'm serious, because think about it. Intimidation. You're either going to be so intimidated that you curl up in your corner and you get scared to go out and look at, the light of day. Or you've been intimidated and pushed so much that the only thing you have left to do is fight. And we, as it indicated earlier, the blue side of the house is not so quick to fight. And this is a local thing. We've lost the top. We should not even concern ourselves with the top of the ballots and all of this anymore, because we've got to get it back starting at the bottom. Anybody can build a pyramid from the bottom up. But the problem is when you turn that pyramid upside down and start building from the top, you never make it down to the bottom. And we've lost our local control, and we've lost our state control, and we've lost our national control.
This is really terrifying. I mean, obviously, we've had the discussion that all 7 swing states went to Trump by basically the same percentage. And there's a whole school of thought that was done through computers, that Elon Musk and his crew.
You all are smart people. Go back and play it back. You had a difference, and then all of a sudden, once you got a certain percentage difference in every state, you flatline. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Just look at it. You try to figure it flatline. It stayed the same all the way through.
I agree, Major Turner.
Well, by 11,780 votes. They know exactly one more. They're telling us.
Yeah, he made it very clear on the telly. But I would like to ask one more question to Ray.
Yes, go ahead, Lynn.
Follow up. As an aside, I've written a lot of those postcards, Ray, and I wonder, if there are any stats to figure out if how many have re-registered successfully and been able to vote. Given we have the stats of whose votes have been purged and challenged, how many are we saving?
I don't have that number. We can try to get it, but I don't know that number off the top of my head.
This is the whole ball game here. I mean, if they can, and Trump basically said, as you'll recall, in his inimitable fashion, that going forward we're not going to have to vote anymore. Right? He did say that, and with Elon Musk standing next to him. How much does a check for 300? How many votes does a check for $300 million buy? And
pretty nice software. And I'm not talking about stealing.
Right. And one thing about conspiracy theories is just because they're conspiracy theories doesn't mean they're not true. I have I could sit here for the next hour and run through 10 of the biggest conspiracies theories that in American history, starting with the Mexican War and the Gulf of Tonkin, and the JFK assassination, and run you right through and rewrite all of American history. And these theories tend to be true. The battleship Maine was not sunk by Spain. It blew up from the inside. So, the question then becomes, how are we going to deal with this? What is going to happen? We know that we can't count on the Democratic Party. I mean, they are the one thing we know about the Democratic Party is it will let us down. So, what's the answer?
The answer is get the youth involved. We have run a good race, and we're fired up about everything, but we have to make those up under us smart. And we have to get them energized. We have to get them to understand that it is their tomorrow. And we also have to get them to understand as we transition to this new era of AI, machine learning, and deep thinking, that they are going to have to be on top of their game. You see, those born on the other side of 1980, 1970 had it real easy. And I would tell you all the same thing. Copy, cutting, and pasting no longer works. You can look good, you can look great, marching across the Edmund Patterson Bridge to get your civil rights, but that era is over. We have brand new problems that are facing us that are going to control us through the 2040, the 2050 era. This is just 2025. How many elections, how many presidents between now and 2040? How many Congress, how many Sixth House, how many Supreme Court justices, how many census? 2. So we've got to be serious about what is going to constitute and dictate what our tomorrow looks like. We've got to be serious. Time is not our friend. And the lack of not knowing what you don't know is what they are counting on. They are 10 years ahead of us and laughing. But the collective group here, we can't do it all ourselves. We've got to start, thumping some people upside the head that are younger than us, pull them in, get them energized, and get them fired up because it's their tomorrow. We don't have that many more voting tomorrows to make a change left in us. We've done our that. We got to get them to show up.
Well, it's pretty powerful, I got to say. And Donald Whitehead, I know you're waiting to talk about the homeless issue, but this is certainly an ample lead in. And we don't know, Ray. We're already getting fundraisers for the next Senate race in Georgia. For better or worse, you're not going to have Marjorie Taylor Greene running, apparently. But I'm sure they'll find somebody else just like her. Mike Hersh, and then we're going to dive into the homeless issue in the last 20 minutes here. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, thanks, Major and Ray and Donald and you, Sluggo, and of course Greg Palast for raising these issues. And these are absolutely horrifying issues. If I could offer just a little bit of optimism, the number of votes that have been suppressed at the margins have been outcome determinative, but that's only because a lot of people don't even try to vote at all. And if we could get people interested from the grassroots out using relational organizing, I think it was something Mark Twain or somebody said, if God wanted people to vote, they'd give us candidates to vote for. Well, if we can give the common people candidates that they can vote for, which is basically getting them to run themselves or getting people from the community to run, we can swamp all of this voter suppression, and we can swamp the corporatists from both parties or all parties with a newly energized electorate. The largest party in the country now are independents, people who've given up on the Democrats and the Republicans for very good reason. And if we can revitalize democracy from the grassroots, and again, like the Major says, you can't build a pyramid upside down. That's not going to work. It's just going to tip over. If we build this pyramid from the grassroots up, if we nurture democracy from the neighborhoods, the communities, and build people together and show people that it is worthwhile voting, that there is something in it for them, and we can remake our country. We've done it before a number of times in our history. It's time that we do it again.
Well, very well stated. And, It's a mountain we got to climb, and certainly Georgia has been a major turn. Do you, Ray and Major, do you know each other in there in Georgia?
No,
No,
but
this is the first
I'm,
time.
I'm
It's
glad
not
to admit and know that he's out there, and it sounds like he's doing an excellent job and needs a
Well,
lot of help.
Major Turner, you're a major in the military, and Ray is a major player in the Voting Rights Act. So you guys have a lot in common. So listen, we're going to follow this. We're going to continue to have you back, and because we can't let we all know what happened in 24. I was up front and personal in Ohio 2004. 24 was just another theft. I do not believe that Donald Trump was legitimately elected. On the other hand, you had a Democratic nominee for president of the United States who, the day after a highly dubious election, completely disappeared. I mean, just vaporized. So we can't have that happen again. Is the Democratic Party going to fight for people's right to vote, or are we going to get stiffed again? It's a very important question, and of course, the Republicans have their view of the right to vote. But and that's a lot of what this immigration issue is about. Obviously, is the right to vote, and we're going to have to pursue it. So, Major McClendon and Major Turner, we're going to have you guys back, please, with Greg, and we'll continue to follow this. And Donald Whitehead now, in
Is
terms of,
it possible, Harvey, forgive me for interrupting.
go ahead.
Is it possible for a lady by the name of Faye Williams to speak? She has been trying to speak and
Oh, I don't see her hand, but is she
yeah,
on
I
with
don't
us?
either, but she's been asking in the chat.
Well, Faye Williams, go ahead and pipe up, and then we're going to go with Donald Whitehead. And I don't know if Susie Shannon has joined us. We're going to close out as we usually do at 4:20 and California time. So
Faye, you should be able to unmute if you can't unmute. Okay, there you go. Great. Please
Yes,
speak up.
I've been attending the meetings, I think, for like 2 months. I just want to say thank you, PDA. I am a Democrat, and I have a lot of problems being a Democrat, but I'm also active in my community. I'm a community organizer, and I'm talking about gun violence as well as voting. I want to say this meeting has been wonderful for me. I'm inspired. I was down today. Once they, Greg Palast, who I absolutely love him from Democracy Now, but also the brother who spoke, and I'm sorry, I can't remember your name, but you were excellent and you inspired me. So continue to follow your lead. My question is that how do we get a copy of the film so that we can get the NAACP and the Democrats involved, because I want to show it in my neighborhood? Is it possible to get a copy of the film as well as to bring you down to Gainesville, Florida to be one of our speakers?
Faye,
Is
that
that a
is
possibility?
Faye, that's such a great question. If you go to gregpalast.com, and we'll put it in the chat, you can order a DVD, Blu-ray, all different kinds of things. If that doesn't work for you, you can show it from YouTube directly. And Greg makes it so easy. He's not charging anybody a penny for the priceless organizing tool that he's provided for us.
Okay, so will this be recorded? I mean, you're recording it now. Would it be accessible on the
yes, it's at
website?
grassrootsep.org. Steve Caruso does a great job of posting it there. Grassrootsep.org.
Okay, that's great. Okay, well,
All
thank you
right,
very
Faye,
much.
and you come.
Thank you.
You keep coming and keep joining us. As I say, we're not going to be out. We won't be gathering next week. It's Memorial Day, but we'll be back in 2 weeks. And Ray and Major Turner, we hope you'll keep coming with us.
What is
And
your brother's name who spoke? What is your brother's name who spoke?
Ray McClendon.
Ray McClendon?
Yeah, Major Turner.
I'm sorry.
Camelia Turner and Ray McClendon.
McClendon. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. And Donald Whitehead, I know you've been waiting, and we've got 13 minutes. They're all yours, you and Susie Shannon. If she joins us, if you can give us the dimension on this about homelessness, that would be great.
Sure. I'm not sure if I can do it in 13 minutes, but I'll do the best I can. And the
Well, you'll
reason
be
I
coming
say that,
back, so you'll be coming regularly to us. So please jump in,
sure.
and if Susie, if you jump in, please raise your hand, and we'll unmute you.
So in short, the issue of homelessness is actually an issue that has two actually terribly harmful competing elements right now. One is the budget discussion and proposed cuts, but then there's also the raft of criminalization practices around the country. As you may know, last year the Supreme Court voted to make it legal to criminalize people, even if there's not enough shelter in a community. And they decided that that wasn't a violation of the Eighth Amendment. Since that time, we've counted 169 different ordinances that have been put in place to basically make it illegal to be homeless. The worst of these being in Kentucky, where there's a stand your ground ordinance, where a person can be removed from a property if they're homeless with the use of force, up to and including deadly force. There is a provision that makes it a felony to be on public property in the state of Tennessee. And I could go on, but there's been 169 of those. And the leader, of course, has been the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, who has actually put into policy a push to make sure that cities are criminalizing people, although we know that there is not enough shelter in any city in California or the rest of the country. At the same time, last year we had the highest growth in recorded homeless. Congress insisted that there be an annual count back in 2007. Last year, we saw an 18% increase, over 770,000 people that they counted on one night in January. That is when the count is conducted every year. Now, honestly, that is a terrible undercount. There are many, many more people experiencing homelessness than that, but that's what comes from that count. But even from that count, we saw we saw the growth. The largest unsheltered population are people 55 years of age and older. Let that sink in a little bit. Then the largest growth in population was families. There was a 39% increase in families. Last year, there was a 12% increase. So that's a 30% increase in unsheltered homelessness or homelessness in general in the last 2 years. Now, the response from the president of the United States, for those of us that use that title, is a budget that would cut 50% of the HUD staff and 80% of the staff that is responsible for caring for people that are home. So there's a lot of other things in the president's skinny budget. He just released that earlier this month. And the skinny budget, of course, doesn't have detail, but it did have where cuts are going to happen. More detail will come out. One really, really major part of his budget is there is an assault on subsidized housing, so which will have a tremendous impact on the growth of homelessness. The idea now is that no longer will subsidized housing be permanent. There'll be a 2-year cap on subsidized housing. And all of those programs, the Section 8 program, all of the other subsidized public housing programs would actually come to the state in the form of a block. So think about that. Yeah, skinny budget coming from the fat man. So if you think about that, now at the same time, we have the reconciliation package being decided with over $1 trillion in cuts to Medicaid and food stamps, which again, the people targeted in that particular instance are people that are 55 years in age and older, or the elderly population, and children. So we have and the cuts are to make room for the continuation of the Trump tax cuts, and it would actually be about $45 trillion. And the numbers are that maybe 17 or 18, sometimes lower, between 8 and 18 million people would be kicked off the Medicaid roll. And not because they don't qualify or there's any abuse. It's just the onerous paperwork would cause them to lose their benefits. They've tried it already in Arkansas, and what we saw is people lose their benefits because of a paperwork burden and a work requirement. So there'd be a work requirement for Medicare, for food stamps, and then you have those tremendous cuts. There's also cuts to the laws. That's why I say this is such a large issue. Even this year, during the COVID crisis, there was a program called the Emergency Housing Voucher. Because of the rise in housing cost, it was thought that would run out in the second quarter of next year. It's probably going to run out in the fourth quarter of this year. And that puts another 60,000 people in jeopardy of losing their housing if that isn't written. The other big thing is that based on what they want to do, they want to move all the homeless assistance to the emergency shelter grant program, which would effectively end permanent supportive housing, which has a 90%. So I'll stop there. There's a lot.
Well,
more.
God, it's just mind-boggling. You're going to have to come back in 2 weeks, please. We will start with you 2 weeks from now. I mean, I have a daughter who's, and both her and her husband are working, and they can't find housing.
Right.
I mean, it's just mind-boggling. And I don't have to tell you. I mean, this is just unconscionable. What's going on here?
Absolutely.
Anybody want to jump in? You're welcome to. I don't know if Susie Shannon was able to make it. I know she had another meeting.
I did not. I don't see Susie in the participant list.
But Donna, it's good to have you in touch with Ray and Major Turner on this. I mean, the homeless issue is totally intertwined with the voting rights issue.
Absolutely.
The right wing has a vested interest in having people not have an address. I don't even know where to begin. Mike, Steve Caruso, go ahead, and then Mike, and we're almost out of time. Steve?
Yeah, I was arrested for sleeping under the bushes in front of a federal building in New Orleans back in the 70s, but that was just the law. You couldn't do that. But federal properties, and they're expanding these rules. In Columbus, they have stripped the edge of the freeways of vegetation completely, which acts as a natural sound barrier to prevent homeless people from sleeping there. So all these areas where
that's called hostile architecture.
Hostile. Very good.
And there's like 100 different forms, like big boulders under bridges and spikes under bridges. So that's another assault. Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's
no problem.
Totally on point. It's
the
unreal.
pigeon spikes in our environment, put there by the government for people, which is totally fascist. But I'll let you go. Thank you, Donald.
Thank you, Donald.
Can I just
go ahead, Donald?
One more thing that I'd love to add, Harvey, is that the criminalization is actually a organized campaign among some of the same people that are connected to Project 2025 and the Trump administration. Peter Thiel and others are behind the criminalization effort. We have theorized that some of their investments are in private prisons, and that is the reason behind this push. Although they talk about public safety, but if you look at studies, if you remove a camp of people experiencing homelessness, and we don't want people in camps, but if you remove a camp, crime rates actually go up versus going down.
Of course they do. The question is, what's with these people? I mean, really, is there a species or a subspecies of human beings that is motivated only by cruelty and greed? Is that what we're dealing with here? I mean, is it a biological question?
I would think that, you can just be so rich. I mean, the greed associated with all of this is just remarkable. And the conscious, just not having a conscious, and I think it is a subhuman form in our community that comes up. Who would make it illegal for people to get warm in a car when there's no shelter? So, there are laws that make it illegal to even sleep in a car, even when there's not enough shelter. Mike, I see Mike's hands up.
Mike, go ahead, and then we're going to wrap.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, wonderful presentation as always, Donald. If people don't know Donald already, Donald is the executive director of the National Coalition to End Homelessness. It's a wonderful organization. They work tirelessly to help people who, through no fault of their own, find themselves unhoused. There, but for the grace of God, go all of us. And it's just absolutely shocking to me the level of cruelty. And this is another case. This is a nonpartisan Zoom, so I feel very confident in saying this is a bipartisan problem. A lot of it has been traced back to Ronald Reagan's very heartless policies of closing down shelters and kicking people out on the streets. And since then, there have been 3 Democratic administrations that have refused to fix the problem that Reagan caused. So they co-signed it, and this is, both major parties own this problem. It's something that could be cured through a very relatively small investment. About the cost of a couple of nuclear submarines could find homes for nearly everybody. And we'd
Right.
have more homes vacant than we have people who need homes. This is
Right, and we're also
simple.
having it, and we're going to pick this up in 2 weeks. We have a turning point in real estate in this country where, because of a number of factors, including computerization, there are millions of square feet of vacant office buildings, and there are a lot.
Sluggo, you're absolutely right. But the thing is, there are actual homes right now that are
Yes, there are
vacant,
homes.
more than enough, and it's just developers want to sell these properties for a top dollar. They actually want to rent it. They don't want anybody to own anything anymore. They want to turn us all into basically,
Renters, right.
renters and dependents, and never be able to build up generational wealth and the independence that brings. A lot of it is rooted in racism, but it's hitting the suburbs now. It's hitting everybody.
Yes, it is.
And Sluggo, you asked a question. What is it with these people? There's no limit to their greed, their lust for power, their lust for money. And I think
And
they must
cruelty.
enjoy, and that's what I'm going to say, they must enjoy seeing people suffer because there's no
Well,
other explanation
on that
for it.
happy note, we have to come back in 2 weeks, and we'll have to have an anthropologist and a cultural biologist to explain how human beings could be totally motivated by greed and cruelty. There have to be people who enjoy seeing people who are homeless. I don't get it, but anyway, listen, everybody, this has been an
And
staggering
Sluggo, real
session.
quick. Sorry to intervene, but Mimi has an update on 2 California solar and grid bills that are coming up for a vote this week.
Yes, and
So
of
if we
course, a
could
lot
just,
of this homeless discussion has to do with the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, who thankfully will be out of office after the next
can we make
election.
him homeless?
Let's
Exactly.
finish. Mimi, go ahead, and then everybody will see you in 2 weeks. But go ahead, Mimi, here in
Thanks so
California.
much. Thank you for the time, y'all. So the
And
California bill to break the solar contracts, that's AB 942. That's going before the Assembly Appropriations Committee on Wednesday. So call the chair, call the Speaker of the Assembly. If any of your California representatives are on that committee, please call them. And then today I just got the news that sorry, I'm scrolling through here so I don't get okay, so the Awful Pathways bill, right? That's Senate Bill 540. That is a bill that would have handed the California electrical grid to Western states. And those would have been, those are oil states. Those are states that use oil. And also we would have lost our energy independence. And it's the federal grid that would have taken over our grid here in California. And that has gone into the Appropriations Committee, into suspense in the Senate, and that will be discussed on Friday. So please call the speakers, please call the committee chairs of the appropriations committees to help stop this bill. California electeds are counting on us to be too distracted by all the horrible things going on today. Thank you, Mr. Whitehead. That was an excellent presentation, but these are very important bills that I know, Sluggo, are close to your heart and other people as well. Thank you so much.
thank you, and thank you, Steve. Thank you, Mimi, for that. Steve, thank you for engineering. Paul Newman also is a solar stakeholder, so I'm sure Paul is going to be following up on that. Donald Whitehead, great to have you. We'll see you in 2
Thank you.
weeks. Major Turner, Ray, be sure and join us. Everybody, Greg Palast, And remember also, look at freepress.org, the fruit of our discussions on using business cards with Q codes at the upcoming tens of millions of rallies. We want to pursue that as well. All right, you guys have a great couple of weeks. We'll see you in June, and no nukes, everybody.
No nukes, housing for all.
And we'll see you in Solartopia.
Peace.
Peace.
Thank you for everything.
Okay, you too, man. No nukes.
All right. Invite me back.
You consider yourself invited.
You have an open invitation, my friend.
Open invitation, absolutely. And Donald, for you, and Ray, everybody, no nukes. We'll see you in a couple weeks. Thank you.